Hello.
Hi.
Okay, there's some people coming in. We'll wait a few minutes. So, I don't know if you were here yesterday, but of the last week. But anyway, the last week we talked about Socratic design and the post-corona era. How can you approach that post-corona era? And basically, we said we already made us unfit before the corona era by being isolated selves, also in wrong narratives, in wrong, you can say, cultural business cultures where the ultimate effect was also a burnout situation in several aspects, not only a lot of workers, but also regarding the planet, of course. And we see more and more that business has to deal with also this climate change challenge. Otherwise, it will not have any reasonable propositions. The point is that in Socratic design, we say, in order to innovate, in order to become fit after the post-corona era, we cannot continue the same things that we've done till now. But what is doing the same things? Well, we start with the assumption that people are living in reality, as that is what they assume. So people think they're living in reality, and they point at reality and say, these are the facts. And the opposite is true. So we have to make a switch from this reality assumption to the, you can say, the insight that we're living in a narrative. And the narrative we are living in is an economical narrative, a cultural narrative, but also a psychological or a personal narrative. And this narrative is built on assumptions. And these assumptions will always continue if we are not aware of the design of our narrative. So the secret of real innovation is profoundly analyze what is the DNA of our narrative till now. That counts for a whole culture. And if you live as an expat in the Netherlands, you know the difference between the Dutch narratives and the Turkish narratives or the American narrative. People in the Netherlands have different assumptions. So there you already can see that a culture is a narrative. And then we make the mistake by saying that nationality is something real. Well, you can say that also the nationality is a narrative that we can change. We can invent new identities on big scales. Today, I'm going to talk about the narrative of your person and the narrative of your company and how to radically change that. So if you look at the person, you can see that we are basically thinking of ourselves as rational beings. We say, for instance, I have a body. We don't say I am a body. We say we think rationally, we act rationally, we look for our desires and we satisfy them. That's what the economy is built on. All these assumptions are not true. So that's why there is an interesting way using philosophy to really critically look at your own assumptions. And you have a cultural assumption in you. So basically, most of you will think that people are egoist, that you have a body like I told you, that people need possessions, and so on. That is one part of the story. But also, you have personal assumptions that were created in the history of your childhood. And the history of your childhood is essential to change your adult life. Because if you don't do that, you probably will continue repeating your childhood traumas, fantasies, or you can say wrong assumptions in an adult body. So, how to know what are your childhood, you can say, wrong assumptions? Well, you can go to therapy, but mostly if you go in therapy, it's too late. It means you had a lot of problems, so you need some psychological help. But also if you are completely sane and healthy and there's no problem, it's very advisable to start writing your narrative and to start writing, what did I do when I was a young kid? Because starting from that on, you will realize that there were like events or happenings in your life that destined your later way of interacting with the world. And a lot of assumptions in persons, you can say, are very painful. And what we do as human beings is, of course, mitigate this pain into, you can say, the opposite of the painful experience. But the interesting thing of our neural system is that our pain is addictive. Even our thoughts are addictive. So if you had a trauma as a boy or a girl at school and you were bullied always, then the pain of being bullied is addictive, how strange it may sound. So also the defense mechanism of this is addictive. So you will, for instance, be very nice to everybody. You will be a pleasing personality. And the pleasing personality, one of the most present, you can say, character trait of people with, where you want to get rid of, the pleasing personality is founded in a pain always. So it's a little bit hiding your real pain. And then every time that you please somebody else, you are rehearsing the addictive pain. There are all sorts of assumptions that you can have in your personal life. You can, for instance, have very heavy one, like I don't deserve to exist, which is of course a very heavy one, but often is a result of a child's fantasy that the divorce of his or her parents is to blame on you. So you are not deserved to exist. But it can also be simple things like that you are always the right person to decide because that's the way your parents educate you. So then in a meeting, you will always ask the floor and will say to everybody what's right to do. So you can detect your personal assumptions even better with a partner. Your partner probably knows your necessities in your thinking. So when you yourself are saying, I always say this or that, then you probably have an addictive thought. When you say yourself, I always do this or that, and that's me, then this is an addictive thought. Or when you say, or other people will say, yeah, Humberto always does this because that's Humberto. All these necessities or these lines of thoughts are something we should get rid of because they are basically not you. So although you will say, that's me, you have to say, probably all that's in your head is not you. And we call that, of course, the fake self. And how can you get rid of this? Observe yourself into your thinking when you again feel the same thoughts over and over again. And observe yourself in the thinking can be the first step to come into an awareness of who you are. And you can do this also by trying to listen to other people. Try to listen to other people without having an own opinion is a philosophical tool that will broaden your mind, but also will deepen your relation with other people. And that means that you will ask somebody a question, and only repeat what the other has said, and don't go into any opinion, but ask, did you say this? And if that's not correct, you can say, can you say it again? Did you say this? And by training this listening capacity, you maybe get rid of your own addictive thoughts, and you get used to get new thoughts in your mind. Your system will always resist other thoughts than your addictive thoughts. So to reinvent yourself, first, it's important to identify your addictive thoughts. You can ask your partners, your parents, your friends. They know perfectly well your addictive thoughts. And then you have to realize that I always thought that's me, but it is probably not me, because you are more than just addictive thoughts. Also, that can be with feelings. You can say, I always feel this when I see a red-haired person. These are also addictive thoughts. So basically, the liberation of us starts with proprioception, observing yourself when you think in reaction to other people. This is a very important one, and you can write your narrative. Why is it so important? You can write your narrative to close a chapter and to start a new chapter. You can just start completely new assumptions and then create a complete new identity. In our culture, you are told that you are a fixed person with a fixed rational base or a fixed character, and people will say to you, be authentic. Well, the other side is true. Never try to be authentic, because it means that they want to put you into the addictive thoughts back. Do as you always do. So try to get rid of this by reacting different or incorporating thoughts of other people. This can be very enlightening. Also, it's important, if you are aware of this, that your childhood has a dominant influence on the way you are. So if you are, for instance, at school, a lot of female pupils got less confidence because that was the way teachers were approaching girls. They have a sort of prejudice. Okay, girls, they have a less necessity, if we talk about the years 60 and 70, a less necessity to come to certain goals and ends. That was the reason that you can see a lot of lack of self-confidence with girls from that period. So if you have a lack of self-confidence, look at it not as something that is something of your character, but that's just an addictive thought, and just do like as if you have confidence. So you can bluff yourself into confidence, because the idea of lack of self-confidence is harming your further development. So you have a lot of people who will say, and especially that's my experience, a lot of these female people, very intelligent female person, in meetings they will say, I don't need to talk, I will listen to other person. But when you listen only to the others and not talk yourself, you will, of course, enforce your lack of self-confidence. So sometimes it is good to do the opposite than what you are used to do. Also, you can, of course, do this in groups. So what we do in groups is try to listen together and experience the collective intelligence. So instead of debate, we can do Socratic dialogues. But that's not something we're going to talk about now. That will be another time. What we talked about is personal reinvention, which is radical, which can only be done when you know your narrative till now. There's a beautiful book called How to Overcome Your Childhood from the School of Life, which is a very short book, but a very handy manual to kill your addictive thoughts, to get rid of it. How to overcome your childhood and how to react not as a child attacking or, fleeing. The next thing I want to talk to you about is how can you as a business prepare for the post-corona era with Socratic design? Well, basically, it is also what is the narrative of your company? What is the purpose of it and what are the values? So every company has assumptions about what human needs are. Every company has assumptions about what their purpose is. That should be the case. But often people are just making a product or a services and continue doing it when it is successful. But now, in this disruptive era, we have to completely think out of the box because we're gonna face new desires. So the secret of a new, you can say, economy is not continuing with the old wants and needs. We have to go on with new desires. How can we create them? And the creation of new desires is a philosophical adventure. So if you, as a company, look at your person which you have in your company, analyze these persons, and analyze their needs. So look at the humans that are in your company as a sort of laboratory of the human race. And then look at them, how can we make them a collective intelligence in our narrative? So if we have a company, we start with creating collective intelligence. And we start with having the people, practicing the art of listening. And practicing the art of listening means that we put between brackets all our fixed assumptions about our products, our way of hierarchy, our way of producing. And basically start from the human experience. And how does that work? Well, a company is nothing more than the people who work there. But in our ideas of abstraction, we often talk about the company as an entity in itself. Basically, we should start always from the persons themselves, define their values, and from their values, we can see what the possible purpose is from this company. So in the philosophy, we can see, if we look at the Corona era, that people start realizing their needs in a different way. People have, for the first time in decennium, have experienced a stop in their lives, a total lockdown. That forced them to reflect on their needs, to reflect on where do I live for? So basically what we see is that without economy, even people will ask essential questions. And this is where the new services will come into play. So what is now essential when I am locked down in my house? People will see that the human mental aspects, the human values, are probably the new economy. And we talk about, of course, a few decennia from now, but we always have, you can say, underestimate the value of the inner self of human beings, because we mentioned that the subjective self. What is in the new discovery when we come to this burnout situation, to this, you can say, totally crisis in the Corona virus, we see that we completely underestimate the relevance of the collective inner world. And this collective inner world is a whole new, interesting, you can say, goal where services of persons and companies can blossom. And in order to understand this collective internal world, you have to stop the assumption that we are all unique individuals with our own needs and wants. We are more collective than we ever realized. So it is very essential to tap into the collective reality, to tap into, you can say, collective awareness. And how do you do that? Well, start with your group. It can be a small company, 3-person or 3,000, and try to get them into talk about their lives. So we do a company in Istanbul. I told just a few ago with the moderator, we have a company in Turkey with 3,000 people, a software company. Everybody is talking about their goals, their purpose, dialogue, and their assumptions. And they're trying to get rid of their wrong assumption. And in that analysis of their wrong assumptions, they discover new services because they can discover new desires. Yeah? Because what is at the end of the day the purpose of a human life? The purpose of a human life is not to having only pleasure, because we didn't have a lot of pleasure, this satisfying stuff. At the end of the day, we want to have a good life. So we experienced in the past 50 years the pleasure side of an economy that exhausted the planet, but exhausted also ourselves. And we are now going to a step further. We want also to have a good life. And in order to know what is a good life, you don't listen to gurus, you listen to the persons you have in your own company, and they will develop their philosophy. So every company from bottom up have to start defining in our sector what is part of it that contributes to a good life. And that can be a shoe factory, or it can be a software factory, or it can be a food factory. But people want to more and more go into good life assets. So it doesn't matter anymore, can I sell this? People want to know, does this company has a awareness of a good life? So can I trust them to help me to create new desires? So in our digital economy, that's endless, because we produced endless apps, endless software applications, which didn't lead basically to a good life, but were satisfying neurological addictions, like we all know. If you have adolescents in house, you know the damage done to these young people. This is a billion industry. We can now say that we've had that, we've seen that, and now we will transform to the good side, because it's also possible with the same software company, with the same game company, to think about real human desires. And that's where it comes into place, the purpose. So you need a sort of purpose that you, as a company, want to contribute to society. And that's the essence that will attract basically your possible clients, but above all will motivate your own workers. Because working for a purpose which gives us life is motivating. And the motivation is the strongest, you can say, asset in economy. And economy is not just about making money. Economy literally means maintaining our ecosystem. The literal meaning of economy is maintaining our ecosystem. And to transform your company to this, you can say, purpose-driven, value-organized organ, so not a hierarchical abstract, but an organ, you need as a leader be giving a lot of overdoses of confidence. So the secret here is confidence. And if you are capable of that, then you be a step further. But you can only give confidence if you fulfill the first condition, which is the reinventing of your own personality. So when you reinvented your own personality, that's the, you can say, the condition to reinvent your company. And reinventing company is basically a source of a new narrative that people can see if I go there, I find a meaning in my new desire. So to finalize, you can say it is not making new products or making new services. The secret is making new desires that you develop from your expertise in your domain, and that is fitted into a good life. So a new desire is not having this addictive game. A new desire could be a game that makes you more empathic or makes you more suitable for human growth. Or anyway, this is the step from the reptile brain, where we are all locked in, the reptile brain, which is called dopamine, which is addictive. And we need to, the next step is our serotonin, neocortex. And the step from the reptile brain to the neocortex will be, you can say, the positive outcome of the deep disruptive crisis. And as you know, a crisis always implies a possibility and for something new and the end of something old. And at the same time, of course, we have the opportunity that everything will go back to as it always was. But as the most futurists warn us, this corona crisis is just a general rehearsal for the real crisis, which is the climate crisis. And in order to be that ready for this big crisis, after this general rehearsal, it is being completely agile in your reinvention. So always, like Hari said, always be capable of reinventing yourself. And that means that you are not your thoughts, you are not your culture, you are not a Turkish, you are not a Dutch, you are just an interacting, intelligent, embodied mind that, together with other embodied minds, can invent a lot of new narratives. And even if you are only capable of creating new narratives or helping people creating new narratives, that is something that is completely necessary in the next disruption. And people are fed up with this burnout identity, with this locked-in narcissistic ego system, and they're looking for meaning, but it is difficult to find that with the old tools in your head. So we have to get rid of them, person level, but also on a company level. And that is what we do. And we do it also in Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, we have a contract with the city council, and we are trying to, the civil servants are transforming themselves by doing this narrative investigation in pairs. If all these servants are transforming themselves, they can help the city to create new narratives so that we have desires which are more close to what the planet or what we really need instead of what we want. And this is only possible with philosophical tools. Why? Because everything is made out of philosophical tools. The idea that you need possession, that you are an egoist, that you have to strive, that you have to fight, it's all philosophical assumption. So now we need new philosophical assumptions. And that's why we call that Socratic design. And the beautiful thing is that we never fail if we have a disciplined collective intelligence. So always, even that people in the individual level are in crisis or in turmoil or in depression, when we have a disciplined dialogue between these people, it's called a Socratic design dialogue, then something comes out of a collective intelligence which liberates you from your ego limitations. So the Indians knew this, the Hindus, all the tribes knew this. We've done it for 100,000 of years, tribal intelligence. Just the past 300 years, we thought it was ego, rational individuality, and it went completely astray. So it's very interesting to go back But that's the funny thing with the highest advanced technology into this collective intelligence. And the philosopher that I want to name before we close is David Bohm. And he developed basically the idea of the Socratic design, what we are practicing. So I'm practicing basically his theory, and the book you can read in English on dialogue and in Dutch over the dialogue. In Dutch, then you got also a preface written by me, but that's not in the English version. On dialogue, it's also free on the internet. You can find it, and it helps you to get rid of your addictive thoughts. Okay, Dimitri, thank you for being here. He has to move to the next. I hope you are inspired. Some of this you can think very deep and difficult to swallow thoughts. But for now, if you have any questions, you are always welcome to come to the Socratic Design Academy website, and there you can ask anything you want. So I will, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Thank you so much for the session.
Thank you for hosting.
And see you next week with the last part of the series.
Yes.
And if you want to maybe be in contact actually regarding, you know, this idea you actually put out there, why not have Venture Cafe in Istanbul? I would like to be able to sort of see, you know, what can be sort of done regarding that. Maybe something might not happen immediately, but it's good to think about it.
No, it's very interesting because we did Miguel and I did a lab in Istanbul with the Women Association of Female Leaders, CEOs, and they did a Socratic dialogue, and it was smashing. They completely went out of their comfort zone, and it appeared to be very strong gains, or you can say desire to innovate from the female business leaders. And that was really interesting. So we can connect you with all these people. So just send an email and then we continue this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, hope you enjoyed it.